Hi, and welcome to Nevaeh's Nightmare. In this episode, we are going to dive into the topic of funeral service and the history behind the Butterworth and Sons Mortuary in Seattle, Washington. Edgar Ray Butterworth, also referred to as E.R. Butterworth, was born in the suburbs of Boston in 1847. He worked as a hatter before going to school for law, and Edgar didn't finish law school but ended up working as a cattle farmer in Kansas. While in Kansas, Edgar built his first coffin for a family passing through whose newborn just died. Edgar took apart his wagon to build a coffin for the family. In 1881, Edgar decided cattle life wasn't for him, and he moved to Washington and built a steam-powered flour mill. At this point in Edgar's life, he was married to his second wife. His first wife tragically died during childbirth, and he had a son. At some point in Washington, Edgar decides to open a furniture shop in Seattle. Around this time, lots of people started to get sick and die from outbreaks. Epidemics of diphtheria, tuberculosis, and Spanish flu were causing loads of people to die, alongside mining conditions and poor sanitation, plus the rising crime rate. Bodies would often end up in the streets due to too many deaths. The city of Seattle was offering undertakers $50 for every decedent that was removed from the streets. With all of the deaths in Seattle, E.R. Butterworth decided to start building and selling coffins commercially. E.R. Butterworth moved and bought partial ownership of the Cross & Co. Undertakers Company. E.R. had his sons work with him. Butterworth named the business E.R. Butterworth and Sons, and it was located in the Masonic Temple in the northeast corner of 2nd Avenue and Pike Street. There are claims and rumors that E.R. would take half of the money from his employees for the removals, and other rumors that there was a race between the surrounding undertakers to clean the streets of bodies, but none of these rumors can be proven, so who knows? Butterworth decided he wanted to build a building that was strictly meant for handling of the deceased. In 1903, he hired English architect John Graham. Later in John Graham's son's career, him and his team would go on to build the Space Needle. Along with E.R. Butterworth, John Graham designed a 5-story building with a chapel that will hold up to 200 people, a casket showroom, a crematorium, and a columbarium, and the very first elevator in the West Coast. The building was built in the Beaux Art architectural style of the era and featured 4 sculpted lion heads on the facade, and on the inside had lavish embellishments of bronze, mahogany, brass, and stained glass, Flemish oak, and Victorian filigree. The bottom floor held the horses and hearses and was level with Post Alley so that moving the bodies was more discreet. The heating plant for the building was located here too. The first floor was above Post Alley, but still below First Avenue. This is what they called the stockroom. There was fireproof vaults here for storing bodies. This was the first time that Seattle had a place to properly store the dead while families made decisions about what they wanted to do with the memorial for their services. The main floor faced First Avenue and had the chapel complete with a choir balcony, an embalming room, morgues, private offices, and a storage room. A showroom featured high-end caskets that could cost as much as $890, which was pretty expensive for that time. The upper floor had 3 flats so employees could live in them, and right below them was the main showroom. The variety of burial clothing and coffins revealed that this mortuary was for everyone in the city, whether they were very poor or rich, and Butterworth and Sons was the main mortuary for everyone in the city. Some of the bodies that came through the mortuary and funeral home came from that of Dr. Linda Hazard, which I talked about in the last video. The mortuary could have been switching the bodies out for Hazard, but there is no proof of this. However, one of the employees did plead guilty to picking up a body from Dr. Linda Hazard without a license and paid the fine. E.R. Butterworth denied ever being friends with Dr. Linda Hazard to the public, but we all know he was. Butterworth and Sons Funeral Home did give us a lot of things that we refer to today, like funeral service packages that include removals, services, embalmings or cremations, hearse options, pay for labor, publishing notices of death, providing flowers, choirs or music, burial permits, and vaults for burials. The Butterworths were very loved by the community and were also part of the Arctic Club. After Edgar had passed away, two of his sons, Gilbert and Frederick, would continue on in the business, and their sons would join them. The Butterworth building would lose its anchor on the death care industry in 1923, when the business had moved to a different building on Melrose that provided more room. The Butterworth building is now no longer a mortuary, and ownership gets a bit confusing and all over the place. Much of the interior was lost over time, and on the first floor where the old chapel and mortuary office once was, there was a restaurant for a bit called Cafe Sophie that was then turned into a restaurant called Avenue 1, then a Chinese restaurant, and then finally a Starlight Lounge until 2007. Now the original E.R. Butterworth and Sons Funeral Home is a historical landmark. With the funeral aspect now to a halt, we can talk about the alleged ghosts that haunt the building. The first floor of the building is said to be haunted by a little girl and the angry spirit of an older man. EVP recordings have picked up audio from both of the paranormal figures. Some of the accounts of paranormal activity over the years are from people who have worked in the restaurants and bars/pubs in the building. Someone from Cafe Sophie claimed that she saw shoes in the stall of a bathroom that just disappeared. Arnie Milan of Avenue 1 said, 2 wine bottles flying off the rack, narrowly missing the manager's head. A diner who fled after he was sure he saw an old woman hugging a shawl disappearing into a wall. Someone who worked at Fire and Ice Lounge claimed that he watched a hanger straighten himself and then rock like a seesaw on a door handle. Someone heard a door shaking, and when she went to the door to put her hand on the door, it stopped shaking. When she pulled her hand away, it started shaking again. The owner of the Fire and Ice Lounge even called a shaman who claimed there were 19 ghosts in the building, but nothing was done about it. More and more strange sightings and experiences still happen to this day, and there are a large number of claims. Even if the building is haunted, there is no denying the impact that E.R. Butterworth and Sons Funeral Home has had on the funeral service industry. If it wasn't for them, who knows how the funeral service industry would be operating now. Butterworth and Sons Funeral Home is a stepping stone to funeralization and public health and safety. Thank you for watching today's video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments. This is a subject that really means a lot to me because I'm in funeral service. So make sure to drop a like, comment, subscribe, do all those things. Again, bye.